Okay.
So welcome everybody. My name is Greg Rockwell. I work with Thrive DC. This is an event of the ACT Initiative. ACT Initiative stands for A Chance to Thrive. It's a coalition of several different organizations: Thrive DC, Community Family Life Services, Free Minds Book Club and Writing Workshop, Jubilee Housing, University of Legal Services, a couple more. We're so excited to have you be here. We have created this coalition because we want to change the perception of people who are coming home. So often when people come home, there's this knee-jerk reaction when they reveal their status to whoever they're talking to, whether it's a potential landlord or employer or friend or partner or whatever it is, where the conversation goes well, and then they talk about their history, and then there's an attitude shift. Where people get defensive, they start wondering, what do I need to worry about? Are you looking for something from me? Is this person dangerous? And the answer is no, none of those things. People coming home are just normal people who made a mistake and are looking for a second chance to just get their lives back to normal. And so events like this, the ACT Initiative puts on so we can hear stories of what it's like to come home, so that people who don't have experience coming home or working with people who come home have a real understanding of what it's like, and can hopefully change the perceptions of who it is they're really talking about, and see Meg and Jean and Curtis instead of just the label. So that is what the ACT Initiative is. ACT stands for A Chance to Thrive, which is what we hope everyone who comes home has a chance to do. So just saying that, I will now turn over to introduce our panelists. Meg, can you say a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. So I am a returning citizen. I've been home for about 1.5 years. I did 8 years in prison. So coming home was a real eye-opening experience for me. It definitely wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I had all these expectations. I've been really blessed as a returning citizen, but I am a woman, and first and foremost, and a mother also. And I'm just taking things one day at a time, taking every opportunity I have to thrive and to share my experience with other people that are coming home. Sometimes people have really bad experiences. I've been really blessed, and I'm super happy to share my experience with you guys. I'm also a member of the CFLS Speakers Bureau, and I've worked with Thrive DC before. So I'm really excited to be here today. Thanks.
Thank you, Meg. Jean, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jean Downey, and I am the 2022 Congressman John Lewis Fellow at Free Minds and Poet Ambassador for Free Minds. I've been incarcerated. I was incarcerated for 21 years on an 82-year to life sentence before giving relief under the Incarceration Reduction Amendment Act 2021. And I've been home only 5 months. And since being home, just like Meg said, I've been blessed, actually. Like, I've been extremely blessed. Like, these last 5 months kind of felt like 5 years. I've done so much. You said something, Greg, early, like, we're gonna hit the ground running. You know, that was my saying. Like, when I get released, I wanted to hit the ground running, but I did not expect to be the road runner. Like, when I got here, it was just nonstop doing everything. So, yeah, and after doing 21 years, obviously, you know, the world has changed considerably from the time I went to prison and the time I come home. Plus, I was a teenager when I went, and I was 19. So, you know, reentry for me was not only an adventure, you know, it was like just being born again, actually, I guess. So, and it still will be, because I'm only still fresh out 5 months. So, yeah, but it's been, I've been blessed though.
Awesome, thank you. And then Curtis, last but not least.
My name is Curtis Patterson, and I'm an active participant in the Thrive program. as well as other few things, business owner, or and I do other things as far as work. But I did 9.5 years in prison. And, coming home for me, it was kind of like, I kind of like slow stepped it. And, kind of like, because I didn't know what to expect. So, like, doing that, like, it helped me develop an understanding on the process of how the transition would, go. And participating in different kinds of programs gave me the foot forward and a step forward in order to be able to, be a success of what I am today. So with that, I'm just, here to share my experience with everyone and, just, move forward with the process and, just help out where I can.
Love it. Thank you. So for everyone watching, we're going to do 30 minutes of just a moderated conversation between me and our panelists, just asking questions about what it was like coming home and what was most meaningful and significant. But we also want to make sure we get to your questions. At about 30 minutes, we'll switch and we'll stop and we'll just go to audience questions. So please type those into the Q&A as you think of them. Type them into the chat box. I'll make sure to lift them up and ask them to our panelists, and I'll have a real conversation where we get to know what it's really like to come home and who our panelists really are. So with that in mind, we talked a little bit about it in your introductions, but please, can you just go around and talk about what your experience was coming home initially? What was the biggest shock or biggest surprise? Meg?
Well, so coming home for me was really exciting, but stressful and full of the unknown. There were so many uncertainties about what life would be like. So many what ifs. I had constant questions running through my mind. Like, where will I live? Will I be able to find a job? Will my family accept me? Can I afford new clothes? I mean, do I have enough money? I mean, all of these things. And would I be able to make it without some sort of financial support? There's so many things to wonder about. And on top of that, there are these questions like, how will people treat me? Will people accept me? Will I be okay? It's hard enough to come home and start life anew without having these issues to carry around, like the stigma of felon to add to it. But I have to admit that, like we said before, I have been extremely blessed. I've had really good experiences, had these great organizations, and so many opportunities have presented themselves to me. So I think for me, the thing that I've been most surprised by is the support for returning citizens that I've found in DC. Because I've maintained a little bit of contact with some of the girls that I was in RDAP with, and they've gone to all these different places and they don't have the support that we have here in DC. So I'm really happy that I come here.
So just a follow-up question. When you got out, what was your first biggest concern? Like, you walk out the doors and what are you thinking about?
Well, you honestly, because I had to go to the halfway house, and you have like a really short period of time. And of course, leading up to it, you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna, I can't wait to get this to eat, and I can't wait to go to a store and do shopping and like all these things. But honestly, my biggest concern was, am I gonna get to the halfway house in time? Am I gonna get in trouble if I don't get there? Because I didn't want to screw it up. I did not want to mess up this opportunity, because the whole time I was gone, I kept saying, man, if they just give me one chance to get out of here, because I saw people leave and come back and leave and come back. I was like, man, if they just give me one chance, I'm not going to mess it up. So that was my biggest concern.
Yeah, say a little bit more about the halfway house, because I think a lot of people are familiar with what the rules and regulations are and how strict an environment that can be, but I think a lot of people also aren't. Like, what is it just like living in a halfway house?
It's kind of like being in prison. It really, I mean, just with a little bit more freedom. Because I came home during COVID, we were allowed to have cell phones, like smartphones, which weren't allowed before COVID. And then we had a computer lab, which we had access to the internet, which we didn't have, in prison. and I'm sure it varies from halfway house to halfway house. But then you were given passes to go, like hygiene passes and stuff like that. But some things were similar. You know, they would do random drug testing. They would have, you know, random room searches. Whenever you came in, they would search you and anything you brought in with you. I mean, that kind of thing was similar, and the rules were pretty similar. And you had a case manager and, you know, a social worker, and you know, these different levels of staff that you dealt with, you know, from the people that worked at the front desk, which were basically like guards or corrections officers, for lack of a better term. And then, you know, the level of staff went up. Um, so it was just like prison, just a little more freedom.
Just a little bit more. Gene, what about you? You know, you haven't been home for that long, though it's felt like 5 years. What has it been like for you, Combo?
Yeah, for me, it was pretty unique because again, I have to start at the beginning where I was given an 82-year life sentence. So in essence, you know, I'm supposed to still be in prison. You know, like I wasn't it wasn't in the cards, so to speak, for me to come home. So for the law to change that alone, you know, kind of rocked my world. Like, oh, they, you know, created a law where it will give me an opportunity to come home early, especially if, you know, it's up to what I've done while I was incarcerated. So it's like the ball is in my court. So from that moment, I started focusing on, you know, getting prepared to come home. Even though my whole incarceration, I always, you know, stayed the course just in case something like this would happen. I educated myself. You know, I taught GED classes and all of these things. Took all these vocation classes, college courses. So when this came about, all I felt like I had to do now was start to prepare myself for my release. So I started to write down day one, like if I'm released, this is what I'm going to do my first day, and that consisted of trying to do everything in one day. Actually, you know, I wanted to get my ID. I wanted to go to these organizations that I've started to read about, because to kind of piggyback off of what Meg said, like, you know, to have these organizations there kind of gave you a little more hope, so to speak, because, you know, back in the day when I first came in, they didn't have all of these things to help people re-enter society. So to have the DC Navigator Reentry book and seeing all of these different organizations that's in place to help us come back to society, it gave me a little bit more incentive to, you know, reach out, in opposed to just waiting until I get there. You know, I started to reach out, and I was a member of Free Minds also, and they helped me like in a tremendous way by keeping me abreast of what was going on with the law, you know, what the requirements were, reading material, and just giving me a platform to speak and give my, you know, my poetry and everything. So I say all that to say, by the time that I was blessed with my release, I kind of had a lot of things in place. I even was featured, or are, because it's still going on, featured in FAM's documentary about the Second Look Act, in fact. And I reached, and we got connected while I was incarcerated. So my first actual day home had cameras in my face. Like when I literally got to Union Station, got off the bus, and my family was there. There were cameras, and so they, you know, captured the whole moment. So that was unique in it, you know, in itself. And then I was in Louisiana when I got released. So it took me what was it, a day and a half to get to DC, because they put me on a bus. So it's like this release after being, you know, incarcerated for 21 years, and then it was almost like as if I was thrown back into the world, because unlike Meg, I didn't have to go to a halfway house. So it was like, oh, you're free now. Once the judge granted it, it was like, okay, you're free now. So not only was I free, I didn't have any restrictions. Like, I'm on probation, but you know, that's just probation, you know. I went from 80 years to life to probation, and 18 months probation nonetheless, right? So
Now,
I'm like, it was a lot. And then I'm being followed with cameras. I'm with Free Minds. The position that I hold today, which is the John Lewis Fellowship, I applied for that while incarcerated. Again, I was getting ready, and by the time the interview process came up, I was free. So I interviewed from home, and I got the position. So like, to have all of these things kind of like fall into place, there's only one word that I can use to describe it, and that's blessing. But at the same time, if I have to go with like surprises, I think the surprise was, for me, it was the support once I got here, because you hear about a lot of the things before you get there, even with Free Minds. Like, I've been dealing with Free Minds maybe 2 or 3 years prior to my release. But, sometimes, especially if you've done that amount of time in prison, you kind of can cipher through, what's real and what's crap or whatever. So, or you give a person or people enough room to, screw it up, and then I can do away with you. So, everybody is subject to that when you're in prison. And when I got released and seeing that Free Minds were in fact who they say they were, and these other organizations, like even sitting here today on this, right, it's still mind-boggling to me. And I think that's the biggest surprise. And that's what I always try to reach back and tell the fellows who are still incarcerated, like, hey, focus on getting out here, because people, you have the support. And that's what it's been like. It's still crazy for me, but that's so far is what it's been like.
that's awesome. Gene, there's a little bit of feedback when you talk. Is there like another TV going on where you are or anything?
No, TV's off. I have a bird though.
No, it's just something odd when you talk that makes it a little unclear. I don't know. Anyways, but thank you. That really is amazing. For people who don't know, the second look back, anyone who is convicted of a crime before they're 25 and sentenced can have their case reviewed by the DC appeal court, I think it is. Anyways, it gives people a chance, like Gene, who have really long sentences, to have those commuted and cut back, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, Susan's saying that maybe Meg Curtis and I need to be muted while Gene is talking. Maybe that'll help. So we can try that.
Okay.
Curtis, we're actually going to switch to you now. Curtis, talk to us a little about what your journey home has been like. What's it been like since release?
I'm gonna say, like how Jane said, like, mostly the support. Like when I came home, like it was, the support was like overwhelming. Like, I would say probably like the first month, like I was just about family, really. Like I just took like that whole time out, like more so focusing on that, getting back to know everyone, because I was gone for 9.5 years. So like, you can talk to a person through a phone or write letters or whatever, but being there and being hands-on and actually, getting to know a person again, like, because I'm not the same Curtis that I was previously. So, now coming back around this time, I'm more so sociable, like, because at first I was antisocial. I'm more so business oriented or business minded. And at first, like, I couldn't even fathom the idea of that. At one point, basically a lot of things changed about me. I was more studious, study, things like that I weren't before. So like just having that support and, coming, and reaching out to these programs and getting, the idea of what type of resources that I do have and what is offered here in the district. That's a whole lot within itself. So now, like, just being able to come out and thrive the way I'm going, because like the drive is like, I wouldn't even say it's at its height yet. Like I'm still, still pushing and thriving in a way that I couldn't even, see myself before. like in the vision of, saying the future, like just became so much clear for me as I take, saying the step every day, and, it just become a better me every single day. So, like just coming home, like it's been phenomenal. Like I can't even describe it in words, like how much, it's been a blessing for me. So I mean, I can't really, that's what I would say.
I appreciate that. Um, let's talk about stereotypes then, because a lot of people who don't work in this field hear returning citizens or ex-cons or whatever the word that they use is, and they think, oh, this is someone who committed crimes once and maybe likely will do it again. This is why I'm nervous to have someone who's a returning citizen in my neighborhood, maybe living next door to me. But hearing all three of you speak about what your priorities are coming home, they're vastly different priorities. Y'all have plans, you have things you want to do, and none of that sounds like anything that would, get you back to prison, right? So, Curtis, just talk a little bit more. Like, what are your priorities? Like, what do you want to do now that you're out? Oh, muted.
So I did just start a business here today, LLC. It's a courier company, courier service. So I'm working on that, building that up, seeking, contracts and, whatnot with that. And I work at another Anchovy Social. Is over here in the Navy. It's in the Navy Yard. Um, and what else? And actually, before I even got on here with you guys, like I just had a job interview for like a program assistant position. But but yeah, so like um the future when it comes to that, like it's just more so, to keep pushing in that direction. And I'm like, I struggle sometimes with, when it comes to having my child. So, I advocate for, like for fathers when it comes to them, seeing their children and stuff like that, because I'm having issues in that area. So that's one of the things that I would like to pick up more in. Um, and I think probably I would say in the next few years or whatever, like just being more so of that sound-minded father, and having my goals and my careers like basically in line, and you know
Yeah,
like
start a
out in front
business.
of me like that.
Start a business. Spend time with your kid. Just have a normal life.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Gene, what about you? Now that you're out, what are your priorities and goals?
Oh, I got a whole list of them. But the short version is, ultimately I want to, like Curtis said, own and operate my own business. Where eventually some form of multimedia company is the goal. I have it all written out, business plans and everything. Because I am a poet, I want to publish my own works, via books, via audio, even video. But I also, one of the most important things I want to do, and I guess that I am doing now, is to share my story, so people can see that you can go to prison, serve a lot of time or not so much time, depending on the person. But for me, a lot of time, and come home and still be a person, still be a human. Because for some odd reason, once we go to prison, we're animals. And once we become that animal, that stigma is stuck with you. So I want to literally change the narrative by, my life, living my life, but telling my story, and also in turn giving back to my community, hoping to show the youth so they don't have to follow the same footsteps that I've gone in order to get to where I'm at. So it's like on both ends of the spectrum. On one side, I want to be able to, be successful on the business field, but on the other side, I also want to use who I am and what I've done to help inspire other people also, which I think is, to me, is actually the most important thing. You're muted.
Yeah, I saw it. Meg, same to you. You know, now that you're home, what are your priorities? What are your goals?
Well, kind of how you summed up what Curtis said, having a normal life, where I do things in an honest, real way and not, I mean, I don't know. For me, one of the most important things is just to live my life with integrity. That's one of the highest priorities that I have, and to give thanks and have gratitude. And those are like the main things. And I find that when those things happen, everything else kind of falls into place. Like when I live my life in a space of finding joy in every day and being grateful for the things that I do have, my life becomes more abundant. And, you know, obviously my son and myself, those are at the top of my priority list. And then, you know, of course, there comes my home and the job and, you know, eventually starting my own business. But one of the things that I'm passionate about is speaking. I want to speak about incarceration and domestic violence and addiction, because those are things that I'm clearly versed at and, you know, definitely have a lot of experience in overcoming. And I also advocate for trauma-informed care to be utilized by providers, case managers, and staff in any institution. But of course, I just want to learn and grow and become a better person and a better version of myself every day. Yeah, I want to watch my son grow old and, you know, find someone to share that with. Simple.
I love that. So I want to switch over and ask the audience to submit their questions too. So if you have questions, please type them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. We're going to get to them right now. But I also want to ask one last question. We talked a lot about what your experience was and how really kind of amazing it's been for all three of you, and how you've had a lot of support that a lot of your peers wouldn't normally get. But has there been a moment where you've come home and you've not gotten that kind of support? We had an interaction with somebody, whether it's a potential landlord or employer, where they just took a look at your status and was like, no.
Yeah, I have, like, on numerous occasions. So like I've had it at work where, where one of my coworkers, like, in general, like you can just be at work and, just talking about, your life, your experiences and things like that. So, I got to the point to where, I was speaking, and, I expressed to the person that, I've been incarcerated and stuff like that. So, once I did, everybody's kind of like close knitted and, what I'm saying, share with each other. And, we go out, we used to go out from time to time all together. And like, once I did share this experience, like, they kind of like distance themselves. So like, it threw me off. So like, I kind of like, I caught it and I knew what it was, I mean, we face these things every day. So like, it's just like, I'm kind of like, I want to say I'm used to it, but at the same time, like, I'm, saying, I get judged. So like, it wasn't a big thing to where as though I probably would have overreacted or anything like that. I just know what it is. And, I just move forward with it. I had that experience, and one time I I tried to talk to this young lady one time, get to know her. And so like, I think she was with like one of those fraternities or something like that.
Mhm.
And so when I did express to her that I had been incarcerated, I guess it's like a thing, a part of their pledge or something like that, that they can't talk to people that's been incarcerated. So I've had that, and just, I don't know, I experienced it quite a lot since I've been home, because like, I'm a sociable person. So like, I can go out and I do go out and I do, just talk to people and just, what I'm saying, generally just have discussions, because everybody, like, sometimes a person just would like to get to know you and, just that's a part of the experience. So like when I do, I actually do encounter these type of things. Not
Yeah.
not not you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying, like all the time, but it has had its moments.
But enough.
Yes.
Yeah. Meg or Gene, is there a moment that speaks out to you in the same way?
It's crazy because for me, it's kind of been a little bit opposite. And when I come home, I had like a lot of trepidation, when it came to what I'm going to be presenting to people, how I be accepted from just regular people. And by regular people, I just mean strangers, I guess, like encountering new people. So I was a bit apprehensive when it comes to expressing, that part about me. And then I realized that the minute somebody found out, or they like, oh, you just come home, and I say how long I've been gone, I get like received like, oh, welcome home. Wow, you've been gone that long. And then they ask a question like, so how old are you? Because you don't look like you're old enough to even have been gone that long. And so for the most part, especially when I first come home, it seemed that it was people were more so open to welcoming, me, even strangers, to say, oh, wow, you've been gone that long. So how has the world changed since you've been gone? Or, what are some of the barriers, or, do you know how to use the cell phone? It's almost was like as if they were kind of in awe to get that perspective, because I guess when you're so used to everybody doing the same thing, now you have this quote unquote baby in the world again. And it's like, wow, what is it? I mean, in fact, my significant other, it's funny that Curtis said that he tried to talk to a young lady. My significant other, we met, and I think our bond came from when she found out that I was gone so long, and then she was like so, mesmerized, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, about my story and where I just come from. And so far it's been that type of thing for me, like a welcome home. But it has been like, when it comes to maybe like jobs and work and stuff like that, it has been a little bit like some people are not as open to it than others. But I think that's just in general. But for us personally, I haven't been hit with that yet. It was more so for me seeing it with other people or hearing other people's stories that made me feel like, wow, for me, it's been different.
That's amazing, because it almost feels like this is a before and after. Like what Curtis described is kind of what the normal story that I usually hear is, and what you're talking about is how we want people to react. We want people to welcome returning citizens when they find out that's what their status is, not push them away. So that's incredibly helpful, and I'm proud of all the DC residents who you've met who've been doing that.
I mean, my incarceration, and it's another story for another day, but my incarceration actually led me to going to see the president speak, like really. And so it's like these things, I feel like if it wasn't for what I've gone through, some of the things I'm experiencing now in 5 short months, actually, I probably wouldn't have been experiencing them. So it's like I'm kind of, as ironic as it sounds, kind of like reaping the benefits of having been in prison.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but okay.
All right, Meg, I want to give you a chance to answer that question too, and then we're going to go to audience questions, if you want to.
Sure. My experience has been pretty similar to Gene's in that regard. When people learn about my status, it's more like surprise and awe. Like this lady that I met at the pool over the summer, we kind of struck up a conversation, and then we decided maybe we should be friends, because we had a lot of things in common. And then we were out having dinner. I told her that I was incarcerated, and she thought I was kidding at first. She was blown away. And then she became like absolutely intrigued by the situation, and wanted to know everything about my story. And, she really, truly didn't believe that white people, much less white women, were sentenced to prison, to any kind of time in prison. You know, she grew up in Detroit, and then she moved to DC and went to Howard University, which is predominantly a Black school. And then she was part of a Black sorority, and she surrounded herself mostly with Black friends. And, I'm really the only white friend she has. And she told me, she's like, I didn't even really realize the biases and just all of the misconceptions I had about white people. She really thought that only young and old Black guys went to prison and got any kind of real time. And she tells me constantly, all the time, that I'm always teaching her new things. And I helped her break free from those stigmas and the ideas that she'd carried for so long. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Going to go to questions. We have a bunch coming in. And not all three of you have to answer all this question because I don't think we have time to do that. But whoever wants to jump in, please. It sounds like all you guys have had pretty smooth journeys for the most part, but did any of you have like a big setback when you came home? Like, what was the biggest setback that you might have had?
Setbacks. Oof. Honestly, my attitude was where my biggest setbacks came in. I brought them on myself. I learned a different way of thinking while I was gone. I learned that what I think controls how I act, which controls basically my entire life. And I kind of got away from that, living in the halfway house where I was surrounded by all these other people who a lot of had very negative attitudes and wants and needs. Everybody's like, well, they should do this and it should be like this. And I learned that thinking like should is really not a good place for me. So I started getting back into that kind of mindset by not surrounding myself, because I didn't have a choice who I was around at that point. But my mind is what my biggest setbacks, where they came. And I really sometimes just have to sit down and reassess where I'm at in my head and why I'm feeling a certain way. What am I thinking right now? What's going on in my surroundings that is causing me to react in this manner? And really for me, that's been the hardest thing, is not slipping back into old mindsets and a lot of that has to do with the people that I surround myself with. So just continually reassessing has been very beneficial for me.
Yeah, I think that gets to, oh, sorry, Gene, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to say really quick, my biggest setback is really a minute one, but it was big for me. I took the driver's test, the learner's permit, what you call it, the written test twice and failed it. That was my biggest setback. But just last weekend, I took it again for the third time and I passed it. So my biggest setback is the hurdle. I got over it, and I was going crazy about that freaking test. So yeah, that was my biggest setback.
Congratulations.
So I had the same thing as Jane, and actually I had to take it 4 times. Like I just recently passed it, probably maybe like I want to say 3 or 4 weeks ago, but now I do actually have my license now. So like that was a setback, and like I mentioned earlier, like not being able to come home and give my daughter like this whole experience with me, like that's been the biggest struggle for me. Like what I'm saying, like not being able to share that, because this was like my whole intent when I was what I'm saying, preparing to come home, like was to be able to come out and just push and push and push. And for her to be able to see me push through it all and, what I'm saying, show her this growth and how much, what I'm saying, I want to be this better person. So that really, that's been the biggest setback for me.
That's great. Matt Robinson submitted a question, so I'm gonna ask it. But if I don't ask it the right way, please type in the chat to correct me. His question is, what importance did rehabilitation play in your successful reentry compared to the logistical support, housing, job, clothing, paperwork, transportation, stuff like that. What type of rehabilitation do you think is the most required for those in reentry or preparing for reentry? So I think that goes to Meg of talking about like their attitude, mind shift, but also take that as you will.
Yeah, I would definitely like to answer and speak on that, because I think that the most important thing is what you just said and what Meg said. Like, you have to change your mentality first, but most of the time, changing the mentality consists of education. So, you know, when you educate yourself, you'd be surprised how different you think when you know more, when you're more knowledgeable of things, how wisdom is even, you know, received and applied. And for me, my rehabilitation solely stood on my education. Like, and my daughter, I too have a daughter, and she was born 1 month after my incarceration. So she was like my inspiration to rehabilitate myself, to do some of the things that I've done. But once I got like just a taste of that education, when I got my GED, then I started to dabble in college courses and business courses. And then I started to teach classes, and it just was like, you know, it just gradually went up and up and up. And then you get so lost in becoming who you are, you don't even realize that you are being perceived as somebody that's rehabilitated. You're just being you. You're just going your path. So it's like, focus on your education, and trust me, if that's your path, the other things that can distract you in prison, you won't even, well, you'll see it because you can't escape it, but you'll be less acceptable to indulge in it. And I think that is what prepared me to be ready for when my opportunity came to get released. So yeah, I think that the biggest thing is education.
I agree. I mean, you getting to a point where I just said, you know, enough is enough. And I know for me, the pain has to get great enough for me to change. You know, it's like I can endure up to a certain point, and then I just get to a point where I'm fed up with my life and whatever it is. And for me, that's where the rehabilitation came. I mean, I saw so many people take the same classes I took, and, you know, just because it was something to do, not even really because they were interested, interested in rehabilitation. They just wanted something to keep them occupied, and they didn't do any inner work to change. And that's where true rehabilitation comes in for me. And, you know, but you have to be willing to put in the work. They don't just hand out rehabilitation in prison or when you get out. It's not like, oh, here you go, you're rehabilitated. No, it's something you do inside yourself. This is something that it takes hard work and dedication and willingness, and to be open and honest with yourself about where you are and how you got there. And you know, making the decision to say, you know what, I'm not going to go there anymore. I'm not going to do things the same way. I'm not going to be the same person. I'm going to change. And making that decision for me was a huge turning point in my life. And that's where rehabilitation really came in. Now, all those other things, the housing, all those supports, those are extremely important too. They go hand in hand. You know, I mean, yes, I would still be able to be successful today without those things, but it would have taken me twice as long. It would have been a lot more stressful for me. You know, I was able to get my son back within 3 months of moving out of the halfway house. I had him back living with me full time. You know, I'm super blessed that my family was willing to, you know, reintegrate him back into my life that quickly. I mean, I've been super blessed. But again, I say all the time, gratitude brings all those things. And I'm the exact opposite of who I was before, you know, I did all this work. So, but all of those things are extremely important as well. So,
Awesome. So we had a question earlier on. What are, you know, a couple of things that the normal person, like walking down the street or that you meet in your lives, can do to be supportive of people who are coming home? So not necessarily like a case manager or someone who's like in their reentry life, but just regular people that you meet walking around?
I think one of the best things you can do is to aid them mentally. Because if you don't know the person, but you encounter them, then you really can't offer them a lot of other things because you don't know that yet. But the minute you find out that someone was incarcerated, I think that the best thing you can do is try to be as mentally supportive as possible, because a lot of us, even myself, and I'm sure maybe Meg and Curtis maybe will do too, even though we seem to be doing so well, the trauma of prison never leaves you. So sometimes we have those days, right, where we might have to just take a minute and sit down. Because I think for me, it's been 5 months and I haven't had too many minutes to take. I've been like extremely busy. So it's like sometimes it's good for that to keep me distracted. But then when I do have my time, you know, sometimes like I have to reflect, I'm like, wow. And not all the time I can talk to somebody about it, you know, not even a regular therapist, because even to some degree, they don't really know. But it may take just a stranger that's not a doctor or anything to that level to just listen and give you that type of support. But other than mental support, I mean, anything that you can do in terms of aiding or volunteering with other organizations to help reingratiate returning citizens to society, that's a big thing too, to help. Like get with Free Minds, get with Thrive, get with all of these other different organizations. That's the biggest thing you can do, and other than the mental support.
And just to piggyback off of that, like, I mean, he said a lot right there, and I would just agree that, you know, just being able to just be open and, you know what I'm saying, just to speak to the person, just make them feel comfortable and, you know, and where we at, and like, and just in general like that, like it's not, we gonna find our way, and just to have that support, just enough to, you know, have someone to be able to lean on or be able to talk to, in the sense that Jane was just expressing. Like it can impact more than a person may think. But that's what I would say to that.
I'll sum it up real quick. For me, it's like practical things that you can do is support them in anything, whether it's mental, emotional. You know, if you have the means to be financially supportive within your organizations and stuff like that, obviously that's greatly beneficial. Be kind. Like Jean said, and Curtis too, we all have moments where we need a moment, or we need someone to offer us that understanding that, you know, I might not be completely okay right this moment. And it's shell shocking to come home. You know, both of these guys were gone longer than me. And I know going in a grocery store was super overwhelming, you know, and you think, oh, they're going to be so excited to, you know, go shopping. Like, it was so overwhelming. I was like, let me just grab this and grab this. And I forgot half the stuff on my list, because you just, it's you're not used to having so many options. So just be kind and be patient, open-minded to the fact that, like Jean said, it is a traumatic experience, piled on top of, you know, the guilt and shame that hopefully, I mean, I know I worked on a lot, but those things still come back up. So be open-minded to helping in any way you can, and try not to be judgmental. You know, we already struggle with the stigmas and those things, and wondering, like, are they judging me for this? So just letting people know, like, hey, that doesn't matter to me. If it really doesn't matter, that means a lot to us.
Yeah, so often I've heard stories where people will talk about coming home and just running into that constant like distancing that Curtis talked about, or they apply for a job and get it, and then they run the background check, and then, sorry, we can't hire you because of your background, and just that constant pushing away and just turning down, or even more overtly like snubs. It's just really wearing and really grating. It can really like make someone depressed, because you're already dealing with enough, and just dealing with like unacceptance is even harder. So I'm so glad that all of you have found people that support you and like accept you and that you can talk to. Actually, one of our questions is talks about that. Michelle said, this panel seems to be giving the three of you a lot of appreciated recognition for what each of you have gone through and your shared experiences and struggles. Do you have the opportunity to do that beyond this panel? Do you have people that you can talk to and share your experiences, like peers?
So I'm a member of the CFLS Speakers Bureau. So I do have the opportunity to speak about incarceration and other things as well. And it's extremely cathartic for me to be able to do that. It's healing. And I also get to do something I love, and that's helping other people and hoping that I can help other people heal or not make the same mistakes that I've made, or just even letting somebody know, like, hey, you're not alone in what you're going through or what you've been through. I've been there too. And even if our experiences aren't exactly the same, the feelings can be, the feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, and finally finding some hope somewhere. Just giving somebody a piece of that. But yes, I do have the opportunity to speak, and I take the opportunity whenever I get it. And plus, therapy and stuff like that, obviously for me, it's very helpful.
Yeah. I also, pardon my bird, but
No, Gene, we got to see the bird before the end.
Okay. I also get a chance to speak daily, actually, because of my position at Free Minds as the John Lewis Fellow. A part of what I do is outreach, and a part of that is to share my story and constantly try to change the narrative of what prison looks like in the inside and what it looks like in reentry. So, and as Meg said, I take advantage of every opportunity to tell my story, and will, continue to do that. And I think that also speaking and maybe motivational speaking or anything to that level is something I want to do in the future too. So, sharing my story is a big part of it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So I participate in like three different programs, like in Thrive, Providence, and the ARCA DC. So like I try and get, and get that out. Same thing, I try to get that out everywhere that I go. Even in, every day when I'm just out and about. Like I say, I'm sociable nowadays. So like um I just run into random people and I just start talking to them. And I was on my way to Thrive the other day, and I was in the Uber, and the Uber driver, like, we just started talking, and like he just asked me for some advice, and the advice that I had given him, like, he was just like, man, I kind of like knew this, but at the same time, like, with just being reaffirmed, or reassured of what I already knew, like it was amazing. And like, we exchanged, information, and it's like a thing where, though, this is somebody that he can help me and I can help him. So like, like just the everyday interactions, like when I'm just out and about, and just being able to participate in all these different programs and put my best forward when I am there, because you gotta think, like, it's other people there. So not only when I speak do I have to, put these things out, but at the same time, through my actions, what other people see is how I would like for them to, for this to be expressed. So like, yeah, this it's important for that.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're running out of time. I want to thank you all for just taking this time, taking this hour to just be open and vulnerable about your experiences. I think it's just been really powerful for all of us to listen. And we really appreciate that. For everyone who's listening and submitted questions, thank you. I think it really helped generate some good discussion. I don't want to leave a conversation like this without talking about like action steps, like what can you do after this hour? So I want to suggest three things. One, like Gene talked about, get involved. If you have the chance to volunteer with an organization like CFLS or Free Minds or Thrive DC, come and work shoulder to shoulder, hand to hand, meet the people who are coming home. Change your mind, change the narrative about who you think is a returning citizen by getting to know Gene, Curtis, Meg. Two, if you don't have the chance to come and volunteer and meet people and make those relationships, consider supporting with a financial gift. We all have really strong missions. We can't do any of that without people who support us and help make it happen. It takes money to have case managers to talk to people while they're still incarcerated and set up those relationships and prepare the way to come home. And then run groups like the Speakers Bureau or the life skills and job training programs that we have here at Thrive. So if you can't volunteer, please consider making a gift. And the third thing is that this is, once again, an act of the ACT initiative. This is a coalition event. So go to our website, achancetothrive.com, and join us. Sign up to be on our mailing list. See how else you can get involved and who you can help bring into this, because we're not going to change the narrative unless we get a lot more people involved in things like this. So those are the three things: volunteer, make relationships, make gifts if you can or cannot do that, and join the ACT initiative, because we're going to change the perceptions. We're going to change the hearts and minds of everyone who's here in DC. That's the goal. So we have one more minute. I don't want my words to be the last words, but Meg, Curtis, Gene, is there anything you want to leave us with?
I just wanted to say thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here today.
I say the same thing. Like I enjoyed this, and I appreciate you all for all of it.
And Gene, your last
Yeah.
one, but we got to see the bird.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you the bird. If you can you guys see it?
Yeah. What's their name?
Oh, it's the simplest name ever. Birdie Bird. Yeah, the name is. I don't know. Can you look? I think she knows that you're looking too.
All right.
That's
Well,
crazy.
Meg, Gene, Curtis, Birdie Bird, thank you all for joining us. Everyone, you have a great afternoon. Thank you.
You do the same. All right, everybody.
All right, man. Like to meet everybody.